Welcome, y'all, with the guitar today. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor podcast for Thursday, July 23rd, 2015. I am Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, and I'm here with Andrew Sherwin, finally after a couple of weeks. Pregame Engineer, what's happening, buddy?
Yeah, I feel like we're almost starting over. We had such a long break.
No kidding. What you drinking on today?
I'm going to do my standard commercial. If y'all haven't had Red Rock Ginger Ale, it's delicious and spicy. If you haven't mixed it with Jim Beam, you ain't living.
I tell you what, spicy is right. The first time I had that, I about sneezed a couple times, but now it's a smooth deal. It's good stuff. So I've got Newcastle Brown Ale, just an old throwback here. It's a bit nostalgic for me, really. I'd like to think I'd have gotten to craft beer. I won't call this craft necessarily, but different style of beer than Natural Light at some point in my life. But this was the very first one that I had that wasn't a, American light lager. So throwback for me. Thanks to my fraternity brother Cameron Moore for introducing me to it. So going with the throwback.
Yeah, Newcastle's a fantastic beer. It's kind of a sweet brown ale. The brown ales that you're going to get in America these days are typically a little bit smoky, almost stouty.
Yeah, and everybody's trying to up the ante on the alcohol volume or ABV on it and everything. So, yeah, it's just a good drinking beer.
Agreed.
So, quick shout out today. We have a new shout out, man. Mike Ellis. You can find him on Twitter at Mike Dean Ellis. Mike DeanEllis. He's started up a racing podcast. It's an iRacing podcast called iRacers Lounge. And so really appreciate him listening. I don't know much about iRacing. Sherwin, I think you had, or you knew at least what it was, and then I went and looked up some stuff.
Yeah, well, 3 or 4 years ago, it was like all the craze. A lot of the drivers, especially Carl Edwards and AJ Allmendinger, are the two I remember talking about it the most, using it for visual cues on how to enter corners. They were actually playing the video game, helping them get into corners at NASCAR tracks. I
remember one of the races afterwards, Carl was in second, and I think it might have been Bristol or something, and he said he did what he did on the video game, and it didn't quite work, which was just keep it on the gas and play it off the wall / first place car, which he did, try to sandwich him in there. Didn't work. That was several years ago. I don't know if it was that video game or that game or if it was something else.
Yeah, that was he was trying to pass Jimmy Johnson at Kansas.
Okay.
He dive bombed
a short track.
Basically just didn't lift going in.
Yep.
Three. And by the time he tried to get it turned, he used the wall to get turned.
Yep.
And Jimmy got back by it. Jimmy had a really funny comment, like, nobody does that at Kansas. So when Carl went flying by on the left, he was like, what the heck is going on?
And then blam!
And Carl blasted the wall, and Jimmy went by him and, went.
Yeah. So we've been gone for 2 weeks, man. What in the world have we been up to? So I was out. I missed the last 2 races, actually, the Sprint Cup races. I've been out at Glacier National Park doing some hiking. We did 60 miles of hiking. There's 0 televisions out there, and there's 0 cell phone signals. So I've been out of touch, off the grid, etc., doing some backpacking and hiking and stuff. It's been awesome. Great place to visit if you ever go. I'll give myself a cheap little plug here. I've started I'm just a multimedia machine right now. I've started a channel on YouTube called Let's Hike. So if you search Let's Hike, Glacier, and then Iceberg Lake, you'll find my first one. Yeah, I know you got to put in a lot of search words there, but you'll find the first one. I'm going to add a bunch of others and hopefully keep up with that. So it's been pretty fun. We had a great time, and some news coming out of Glacier right now. 4 days after I was there, actually 2 days after we were there, wildfire started, and it's grown into something like 4,000 acres worth, and they've shut down half the park. All the places that we stayed 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days, or not 4, 4, 5, and 6 days ago, they're all shut down now. So it really feels weird. We got lucky, I guess, and I feel bad for all the people there right now. Beautiful place. So I recommend everybody go there as soon as this fire's out. You've been out in Denver, though. What's been going on?
Yeah, well, I went out to Denver Thursday the 9th to visit my sister, among other things. And I discovered some things about Denver that I didn't know, which is, I mean, I didn't come in with any with too much knowledge. I knew there were some things I wanted to do while I was there, but really the coolest thing that happened while we were there, like I mentioned on the last podcast, we were planning to go on Saturday night to see the Colorado Rapids MLS team play the Salt Lake City Real Salt Lake team, which is an in-region rivalry, which makes everything better. Obviously, if you know anything about team sports, in-region rivalries are everything. And we ended up riding a party wagon from a soccer hooligan bar called Three Lions, which is really close to where I stayed and really close to where my sister lives. And we got on this party wagon. It was like $10 to ride to the stadium. It's like a 35, 40-minute ride. And they're handing out beers, and they're doing the chants, just like you said when you went to the hooligan bar for the women's championship game. And they're chanting stuff that's hilarious. I mean, they have 3 or 4 different chants that, I mean, there's 2 of them I think you could sub for just about any team if you got creative with it, but there are several that were very specific to what I think the national opinion of Utah culture is in terms of, you know, some of the religions that are indigenous to that region that were obviously offensive but quite hilarious if you can take them with a grain of salt.
That's awesome. On top of that, you've done a little bit more soccer stuff just as of yesterday. Where have you been?
That's right. I went down to the Dome with our good friend Michael Clark and my parents as well to watch the semifinal of the Gold Cup that the men were playing in.
I didn't realize your parents went. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for them.
We didn't get the result that we would have wanted, obviously. I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of backlash in this social media world where anybody and everybody can say something really, really crappy on Twitter or on a blog spot or on Facebook. But I didn't really get too emotional about it. It would have been a lot of fun to win. I tell you what, when we scored to make it 2-1, that place went absolutely bonkers, which was
awesome.
Fun. There was 70,000 people in the Dome for a soccer game, and there was Atlanta Falcons games last year where there wasn't 70,000 people there. So that's good perspective.
Yeah, that's great, and especially with the MLS team coming up, we can get excited about some soccer in Atlanta here.
Oh, we absolutely can. I think there was big news that came out of the American Soccer Club that, you know, there's been a hefty commitment or at least down payment towards season tickets. I think Atlanta is going to support soccer well. I'm excited.
That's great. So what we missed while we were gone, essentially I missed the Kyle Busch show apparently. And we talked about Kentucky. We sort of did the lead in for Kentucky the last podcast, and we had Loudon as well, and he's just cleaning up. So I guess starting with Kentucky, just real quick on our picks, just to update, I picked Matt Kenseth, who finished 5th. Casey Kane, unfortunately, who you picked and who's our favorite driver, both of us, ended up 27th. So just if anybody's keeping score out there, I had a leg up that time, but Casey running pretty good most of the race, I guess, or maybe not. I can't remember. Or I wasn't there. I wouldn't have known.
Well, I ended up watching it on DVR Monday evening, and I already knew the results, so I wasn't super thrilled waiting to find out what caused Casey to fall to 27th. But the big takeaway for me is I believe that the rules package change was a success. The fastest car won the race, and that hasn't always been the case in the last let's
Oh man, lost Sherwin. Okay, so we had our probably our biggest blunder yet right there with something going on with technical mumbo jumbo, but we're back in the saddle.
Yeah, I have no idea of knowing when it exactly cut out. I won't replay too much of it. I'll just say that the fastest car won the race at Kentucky, and so that means to me that the package did what it was supposed to do, because we haven't had – I mean, a lot of times now we've had the fastest car in the last 6 or 8 years since the real big change in the type of car. The fastest car didn't win. So it looked like the aero stuff they put together actually did what it was supposed to do.
Well, that's great. That's kind of what we wanted. So good.
Yeah, I mean, it bodes well.
And we move on to Loudon. And once again, I was out of touch, off the grid. So Loudon again, the Kyle Busch show that we talked about. Did you get a chance to watch that?
I sure did. Brad was real good for a lot of the race too. The race looked good to me. I have expectations for what Loudon is. I love Loudon. I like that it's flat.
It's on the list.
Yeah, one of the things that was really interesting was Harvick was running a line that nobody else could run. And there was a lot of chatter on the radios about how he was able to do that. And I'm curious to see where that story will go since we're going back there during the chase, if that gives them some kind of advantage, because it was really, really hot in Loudon, hotter than it normally is. I mean, it sounded like they had weather very similar to Atlanta, in the 90s and a lot of humidity. Wow. And that was very different from the way they practiced. So maybe if they were able to practice in those same conditions, you would have seen other cars up towards the front. But the two cars to me that looked like the best cars was the one that won it, the 18, and Brad in the 2.
That's cool. So, yeah, the Kyle Busch show continues. Well, I guess at this point everybody was talking about, maybe still is, about where Kyle Busch stands now as far as the championship goes. I want to hear your thoughts on that, on, people saying, well, he definitely deserves it at this point, or he's still got to do blah, blah, blah. I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll chime in with some stuff. We talked about this last podcast a few weeks ago, and but I guess things have changed a little bit when you sweep the 2 weeks we've been out.
Yeah, they certainly have changed. They've changed in the aspect that Kyle doesn't have to finish as well over the course of the next 6 or 8 races.
Yeah.
To get himself in.
Yeah, he's something like 50 points out of 30th.
Yeah, 50 or 53.
Yeah, like we're talking about like Cole Witt and a couple other guys ahead of him that he should be able to pass. No disrespect to Cole Witt, but
Oh yeah, exactly right. It's 7 or 8 positions per race that he has to beat the 31st, 30th, and 29th place driver.
Yeah.
And he'll be fine. The thing that I haven't totally come to grips with it, like he's won 3 of 8 races since his return. That's fantastic. I'm still not sold on his eligibility. And I know that NASCAR made an in-the-moment decision because it was a safety deal that they probably could have managed differently. I'm struggling because I'm trying to come up with analogies with other professional sports entities.
Yeah, it's hard to do, because it's not necessarily team sport here. It's, what else do we have like this? Golf, where, everybody's playing at the same time. So it's hard to say.
The thing I was trying to most equate it to was maybe football, where in NFL, the quarterback really matters the most. You're not going to see a football team make the playoffs and do anything special with a backup quarterback. I wonder if it's kind of like, with quarterback, let's talk about Brady, for instance. That's what's all in the national media. Brady, maybe he's going to get these 4-game suspension. Let's say that upholds.
Yeah.
It would be just like if the NFL said, all right, when Brady comes back after those 4 games, it doesn't matter what New England's record was before when he was out. Like if they go 0-4, doesn't matter. If they go 8-4 after that, then they're going to make the playoffs because that's a good record. That is the closest thing, and I know it's not a good comparison.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, and not being in it, not being in the races, it's weird. It was a mea culpa on NASCAR's part. We talked about how that's kind of a rare thing and how they did that. I was happy with. I was originally happy with the way that they said, "Look, all right, all they did was say he's still race eligible. He still has to do all the things to qualify him to be." I said race eligible, chase eligible. I can't speak English right now, but he's still chase eligible. He just has to do all the things that would make you get into the chase. And so I was okay with it then, and I'm still okay with it now. I know some people are saying no matter what, he needs to be in the chase at this point. I disagree. I don't want another last-second change by NASCAR to make up another rule that, he can be in, or the Jeff Gordon thing that we had where they let Jeff Gordon in because. I want him to still have to do what he has to do. He knew what he had to do. He's most of the way there now, and still has to do some stuff. But I think he's earning his spot as best he could given the circumstances that weren't his fault.
Yep, I would agree. I think NASCAR needs to stay the course on their current rule system and what they decided way back when Kyle was injured. What I would say is they did not set the bar high enough on where you need to be in points to qualify for the chase. If 16 cars are going to make it in, you need to be in the top 20 to make it. That's where I'm at.
Okay. All right. I can't argue against it. It makes sense. We'll see.
That eliminates the situation you had with David Reagan winning a Talladega race that doesn't – I mean, it's a coin flip.
Yeah.
There's no way he ever makes it in the top 20 in points. So, you need to reward the teams that show up every week and try to run. I think some teams that have really missed out over the years, I think that Furniture Row team is one of them. I think Paul Menard's team is one of them. They consistently are running in the top 20. And why would you give – 2019, they lucked into a win somewhere? How does that benefit the sport?
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to not just this decision on the top 30, but just in general saying that or NASCAR's position being that wins need to matter the most. And so that's their position. And I think this aligns well with that position. But, to your point, maybe it's worth looking at an adjustment there. So,
oh, no, you're perfectly correct on that. I think it offers up more opportunities for them to look stupid than it does for them to look right.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that's not stupid, and that is last night's Mudsummer Classic. And, man, I got to tell you, I look forward to that every year, and it never, ever disappoints. I'm talking about the first when they're doing the parade laps, when they do the four wide parade lap at the beginning, if you don't get goosebumps, you're not a racing fan. And then if you once it starts, those first couple laps, I mean, you're just on the edge of your seat because you're not used to seeing these trucks, steer right to go left sort of thing. And just seeing trucks on dirt, seeing the guys running up front. We had Christopher Bell, who was in his third truck race ever, dominating the race really, with Bobby Pierce, another guy that you don't hear about, right on his rear end and all the way up until the end. When Bobby Pierce's, whatever you want to call it, trunk lid was just sort of flapping around. Yeah, the deck lid was just flapping around. And kudos to NASCAR for not black flagging him or anything. Let him race. This is dirt track racing. That's what this is. So, man, I can't tell you how much fun I had last night. I had trouble falling asleep because it ended pretty late, and I had to go to bed. But I'm laying in bed going, man, this is awesome. What'd you do there? Did you bleed? Look like you cut yourself.
Probably saw my face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Evidently, had a thumb injury I wasn't aware of. That I had to do a quick repair on a little pit stop.
But I can't say enough about this Mudsummer Classic, man. And there's every time it happens, everybody's talking about we need to run Sprint Cup here. We need to run more races on dirt. We need more. I would say don't dilute the water or anything right now. Keep this thing going like it is, and let's get excited for it. We did see the TV numbers that were down a bit, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the. Well, it doesn't. It didn't clash with the U.S. Gold Cup. Matter of fact, it came on right after it. So I was a little discouraged by that. I don't know if maybe the novelty has worn off for the non-racing fan or something, or maybe it's just the accessibility of Fox Sports 1 for people. But, man, I want to do everything I can to keep this thing propped up.
Well, I suspect that Speed's accessibility was higher. Reached more viewers than Fox Sports 1. That's a hunch. I don't have any factual evidence to back that. You'll hear that a lot here on the podcast. So we have speculation that it doesn't behoove us to go actually research it because it's just too time consuming. I would definitely caution all the people that are saying, oh my God, NASCAR fans, they loved dirt racing and now they already hate it. It's like, all right, let's take it easy real quick. There could be some other reason for this that we haven't factored in yet, but I'm totally with you on not diluting the waters. There was a time I didn't really necessarily understand the idea that you should leave people wanting more than less.
Yep.
I guess I never thought about it. I think that's something you taught me. They absolutely should leave people wanting more because that creates demand.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just do this truck thing for a few more years and see where it goes. I think that race is great. I think it's great that it really gives NASCAR the old time feel where, I think there was 17,000 fans at a racetrack that probably used to be drawing maybe 6,000 or 8,000 for a big time sprint car race.
Yeah.
So that's a huge deal.
Yeah. And props to everybody going out to it, and even pre-race, everything's so cool. You see Tony Stewart running around in a big tractor dragging an aerator. Just the old school feel of it's so perfect. Everything about it. Everybody's you just got to watch that. You got to love that.
I think you're right. Tony really made this thing go. Obviously, dirt racing is his first love, and he really sold this thing to NASCAR. And as far as the on-track product and the in-person attendance, this thing is bulletproof.
Yeah, yeah, and man, I could just keep talking about the way the trucks went around, the different lines that they had. The running the bottom line, the guys who would go up top, dive bomb, and it happens in all the dirt. That's a fact, or that's a fact of dirt racing. Is they'll dive bomb the bottom. They'll get 2 truck lengths ahead of the leader, and the leader's running the top. Well, leader comes back around. He's back on the gas. These guys are up in the wall, and now 5 truck lengths behind him. And so just trying to find that line, man, and everything's so pronounced. Everything's exaggerated more so than it is on the paved tracks. So just so much fun to watch. I'm counting down 364 days to the next one.
Well, you have guys that are trying to use the rear of the car to turn it, and you got guys that are trying to use the front. And there's only a few opportunities to use the front of the truck or the car to steer it, and they're hoping they grab that one little spot of mud way down low that snatches the car to the left so they can do the slide job.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really fun.
And they were running up top. I mean, by the end of it, those were moguls, man. They were on 2 wheels. Yeah, exactly. Roller coaster move. It was nuts up there. So trying to and that was the best line was trying to bump around on those, and hence Bobby Pierce's deck lid coming loose eventually and slapping the wall a couple times. Again, I can't say enough about it. So I should probably stop talking about it, but it was just so much fun.
Well, the big talk that I saw today on the Twitterverse and social media was that people love, at least hardcore racing fans, love the fact that you can just beat the heck out of these things and still contend for the win.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to short track racing of yesteryear even. You remember back in – I'm talking about 6, maybe 8, 10 years ago, especially when we first started watching. One of the appeals of something like Bristol was that the guy who won, well, he wasn't going to have a hood. He wasn't going to have fenders. That thing's going to be taped up, all banged up and everything. And he's still running up front. So it kind of brings me back to those days too, that really just shows the talent of the race car drivers too, what they can do in the face of, not having aero, not having this and that. So.
Well, we used to, and when we first got into this sport, Martinsville was the racetrack where you could have a guy finish on the lead lap that didn't even have a front clip.
Yeah.
Just a radiator out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And still finish on the lead lap.
Yeah, looks like a hot rod or something out there.
Yeah, it looks like a rat rod.
Yeah, a rat rod. Yeah. So, let's turn this thing over to I don't want to get too negative, but we express our opinions on here, and we've seen in a few sports lately, NASCAR included, on some of the racing package stuff and some of the things Brian Francis said, and there seems to be a trend in the last week at least on what you in our sort of pre-show here called the dictatorship style leadership of a few different sports. And I think we can bring them together with the things that Brian Francis said about intermediate tracks, things going on with IndyCar on the whole actions detrimental to stock car racing, and maybe a little bit of a sidebar, but we can tie it in with you had mentioned Kevin Harvick representing a guy that in UFC, and UFC making some decisions over the last week. So tell us about those.
Yeah, so I mean, we've long known, people that pay close enough attention have known that NASCAR really operates like a dictatorship in the fact that they haven't until recently sought a lot of advice from the community on how they make their rules. I think they're really probably their falling revenue from the boom in the early 2000s has kick-started their need to seek advice from a wider audience. But they have that rule that's called actions detrimental to stock car racing, and that pretty much anything on earth that you do could fall under that rule should they choose. And we've had to deal with that, and we've probably gotten used to it over the years. But the big news this week was that IndyCar, in the wake of all the safety discussion at the oval races that IndyCar has participated in the last couple of weeks, has created a buzz amongst Indy, and they've now instituted their own "you're not allowed to say things we don't like" rule, or "you're not allowed to do things we don't like, away from the track." And I think we have to caution these large governing bodies, typically led by a single person, which is why I call it sports dictatorships. And we have to caution that, are these really the right things, or should we figure out how to respond to them in such a way that we can spin it back to a positive light as a way to learn, as a way to get things better for the competitor, better for the fan, better for the sport, and better for the people that are cashing checks. And that was a long spiel, but I'll couple the UFC into this. They've made a recent decision, I think it went live like 2 weeks ago, that they have a corporate sponsor in Reebok now, which is owned by Adidas. Yep. For those who don't know, that all their fighter apparel is going to be Reebok sponsored, and that's it. And I don't know if you recall, but there was a lot of different little apparel companies that were affiliated with the sport of UFC, and they were giving fighters kickbacks, and even Octagon workers that aren't fighters were getting kickbacks. And you've seen a huge backlash to negative feedback that some fighters and some workers are provided, that while it's cool that the uniforms are very clean, the Reebok kits are very clean. It looks nice. Everybody's kind of got a uniform look. The red fighter has a look. The blue fighter has a look. And a little bit more clarification. The contender is the blue fighter. The red fighter is the favorite, or the holder of the title. What they've done is they've taken a sponsorship opportunity away from the participants. Yep. And UFC has acted very much like the old Soviet Union may have acted, in that Brandon Schaub, who's a Fighter and the Kid podcaster, which I consume, is very funny. His Reebok kit was pulled off the site, which he doesn't care because he makes plenty of money doing his other promotional stuff, even though he doesn't really fight anymore. But Reebok's charging $95 for that kit, and there's not any UFC fans that can afford that. So it's kind of silly to begin with. But this whole idea that you can only do things our way is something that these sports entities need to be very careful about, because there's such a broad audience.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brian France, something I'd mentioned too, Brian France talking about intermediate tracks. And we had our soapbox about pack racing, and you're shaking your head there. And here we are, right back at it, with Brian France saying he wants to get a package that introduces more pack racing at these intermediate tracks. And I mean, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard to me right there, thinking about more pack racing when, I've already said I've boycotted 2 races now due to the pack racing. So I still don't get it. I still don't see the appeal. I still don't know what we're thinking there. The best part about these intermediate tracks to me is seeing these guys, especially when they spread out, And if you're able to listen listen to the drivers and stuff, when me and you were in Atlanta and Casey Kane's running maybe 5th or top 10 or something, and he's making up time, and you can hear the time that he's making up. All right, he got a quarter second this lap. All right, he got a tenth this lap, and we're just everybody's making the reel 'em in fish sort of motion and having fun like that. Yeah, exactly, casting it out there hard. You got to still have that. I can't imagine just all the tracks, all these intermediate tracks, mile and a halfers being pack racing. So it blows my mind that you would even think about doing that with the good product we have out there already.
That was the most frustrating thing I've read in the last 2 weeks, was that you have all these media members, a lot of them I respect, talking about how, this was a big step in the right direction for NASCAR at Kentucky with this low drag, low downforce package that allowed the fastest car to win the race.
Yep.
And the next thing out of Brian France's mouth is, well, we really want to see more pack racing, even at places like Kentucky. So we're going to try to work in that direction. And then they go, oh, we're going to bring a 9-inch spoiler to Indianapolis, and we're going to have the same nose piece that we ran at Kentucky. It's like,
yeah.
Who are you listening to?
Yeah.
Who's giving you the feedback that this is the way to go?
Yeah. It blows my mind. It's hard to come up with words, as our listeners can tell right now, as we're sitting here breathing into our mics going, what, how do we, and we're trying to be PG and we can't fill with cuss words.
Right.
So,
all right. I want the listeners to know right now that it's actually quite a challenge for me to stay this clean for this long. I think I put on like my work hat.
Yeah.
I'm in front of like managers and directors, and I can't just say what I want to say.
I have to think about it. The brain fries a little bit.
Junkyard dog language otherwise.
Right. So yeah, and that ties back into this dictatorship style leadership we've been talking about. And so tying a few of those together, I don't know what we do. We can keep responding. The fans can keep responding to things. If that's what the fans want, it's hard to argue with that if that's what the fans want, other than maybe we can convince the fans there's a better way of racing. And so, maybe with a couple hundred more fans, we'll be there.
Well, maybe so. I don't know that we'll create a movement right away with a tidal wave of emotion, but what? I mean, maybe we can reach a wide enough avenue that we can get in a room and say, okay, here as a fan who has a brain, I'm a problem solver that's what I get paid to do, among other things. Let's talk about the things that are happening and what are the changes that we can make that might be beneficial to everyone, because NASCAR has made a lot of decisions that benefit them. But then again, a lot of the decisions they've made actually hurt them because the ticket sales is awful right now.
Yeah. I mean, and we've talked about it. It seems like they don't really care about ticket sales. They've got their TV deals, and so
Well, yeah, the NASCAR itself, the company, has the TV deal. That's what drives them. Yep. They probably have some kind of internet content deal too, and that's all that drives them. But then you have these other companies that actually operate the tracks, and NASCAR doesn't really have to. They just leave it to them to figure it out. Which SMI, which we have a certain opinion about, and you got Atlanta, you got look at Loudon last week. You didn't get to see it. There was nobody at that race. And we've talked about that before, and I don't want to be a Beverly Hills drama queen, but there was nobody at that race. If those bleachers were half full, I'll give you my left hand. You can have it.
Yeah. And, I mean, on a similar topic, here at our home track, Atlanta Motor Speedway, I got the call the other day from the ticket office, and, I mean, you and I are always a lock. I mean, if they get kickbacks for selling the tickets, whoever calls us gets is almost guaranteed something. And I almost felt bad. I shouldn't have to feel bad because hey, I'm the client here, but I almost felt bad telling them I'm not renewing this year. It's going to be a game time decision at best, just because of where we are in the year. It's winter in Georgia. It was it's pretty miserable out there. So yeah, the on track stuff, and look at that compared to what we just had with the Mud Summer Classic and what we were talking about. I believe if you had 40,000 seats, you'd fill them all in at Eldora.
I think you would too, but let's not jump to put 40,000 there.
I agree. Otherwise, you're going to be tearing them down, 5 years later, just like we're doing.
That ticket worth something.
Yeah, exactly. So there's our negativity for today. Let's talk about Indy on the bright side. It's huge. This is always a huge race. This is like you said in the comments we were talking about before we started recording. Once a year, we go to Indy, kissing the bricks, all that stuff. So it is here, despite whatever spoiler stuff there is. There's a lot of stuff going on this week, especially with Jeff Gordon. This is kind of a big place for him. What is he, 3-time winner here? 4. So he's, a lot of stuff going on. They have a lot of tribute stuff for him. It's been fun watching so far, and we've got it coming up. So I'm looking forward to the race regardless.
I'm looking forward to the race because it's usually actually a fun race to watch, except for that one year where they goofed up with the tires.
Yep.
And, there's just so many things to like about it. You and I have a very strong respect for the open wheel race that happens there. We usually try to watch it. A lot of times we'll even watch it together and talk about it as we get ready for the Coke 600.
Yep.
It's a place that should be respected because without Indy, you don't have American Autosport. That was the birth of American Autosport. And so that's a piece that you need to factor in. The other thing you need to factor in is why not put this place on your bucket list if you like golf? Because how friggin' cool would it be to tee off? And I can't remember the number of the hole, but you're teeing off on the backstretch playing a long par 4. And to your right is the racetrack, and in front of you is this lush green golf course. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. Definitely a bucket list thing, and who knows how much it costs or how long ahead of time you got to get tee times for around the week of the race. But if you can get out there, even if you don't, even if you just go up there one weekend just to do it, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, you could do it as you drove up to go see Georgia Tech play at South Bend.
Well, hello. There is that coming up.
We mixed some UFC. I thought I'd mix some college football in.
So that brings us to picks. Who do you want? Who should go first? I'll tell you what. Since I had the last one, or I think whoever has the better pick the last week, they go second the next week. How about that? So
yeah,
this time it's you.
I'm good with that. I think if this drag package works out the way NASCAR wants it to, I'm going off the grid. Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Oh man, okay. Who just won at the Daytona on July 4th weekend? So he's. I think that's a great pick. If exactly what you just said, that this downforce package does what they want to. So I've already actually said the name of my pick. I'm picking Jeff Gordon. I have not picked him yet in his farewell season. 4-time winner. I think this is a great place for him to have his first win of the season, get him into the chase, and a great send off after Indy.
Well, his town that he grew up in, we talked about where he was born in Vallejo, which is right near where Sonoma is. That was cool. They did a thing for him. Pittsburgh, Indiana they had Jeff Gordon Day today, and this is a town smaller than either of the ones we grew up in.
Yeah.
Had a big old parade and all kinds of junk going on today. If this is the only race he's going to win this year, I sure hope it's this one.
Yeah. Yes, I totally agree. So mine might be more of a pick from the heart than from the mind, but boy, that would be cool to see him kissing the bricks again. So I think that gets us down to our last couple things here. So we did mention Darlington a couple weeks ago. I got to get my butt in gear and go ahead and work on tickets on that. So yeah, keep on me, and maybe the fans will keep on me too. to make sure we
need
do
to talk
that.
about where we want to sit. I know we sat kind of where we tend to sit at tracks that size, but I wonder if it wouldn't be fun to sit down there near turn 4. I've heard some good things about the angle.
Ooh, I had not thought about moving around at all at pretty much at any of our tracks. So that's a great idea. And even before then, we'll have the Bristol race going too.
That's right. I'm so excited for Bristol.
I am too.
I just love that place. It's like my happy place. I mean, if you look at the PETM podcast's Twitter handle, the background picture is actually a picture I took last year when we were going over the Smokies, and it was the most they've looked like the Smokies since we've been making that trip.
Oh yeah,
that's what that is. And while I'm on that subject, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Tailgate Mayor's sister, her fantastic.
Yeah. We gave her the 8-second shout out last podcast, and here we are again.
Yeah, she put together a great little magic marker picture of probably Rusty or Tailgate Mayor and pregame engineer's favorite picture to date was the picture after Casey's win at Atlanta Motor Speedway last fall. And so we've made that the avatar for the podcast handle. And it's a great picture. Go ahead and check us out over there. Check us.
Yeah. And speaking of, see, my sister keeps knocking it out of the park here. So she bought me this mixer for the podcast for my birthday. My birthday was this last week too. That's partly why I took off.
Happy birthday, dude!
Hey, appreciate it. Cheers. Actually, I'm out of cheersable stuff, so I'll have one
You're
here.
Almost as old as me again.
Yeah,
just keep chasing me.
yeah. Hopefully that'll happen for a long time. But this thing's got like 26 buttons on it to mash. It's got 18 holes to put stuff in. I have no idea what I'm doing with it, but it's here, and evidently I need to go buy some cords. So I'm going to go to the cord store, whatever that is, figure that out, and once I get it all plugged in, man, we'll be high tech.
Cool. Well, as we roll into the final moments of this podcast, I have a backup plan.
Oh.
I've got some Samuel Adams Rebel IPA in a can.
Oh, nice. I didn't even know that came in a can.
It does now.
It does now.
Discovered.
Well done. Well, I'm about parched, and I need to go get a refill, so we'll close her out. Hey, guys, you can find us on Twitter at PETM Podcast, as usual. And this is Tailgate Mayor at Tailgate Mayor. And Sherwin, I think you got a new one.
That's right. I finally shrunk mine down to something more manageable. The pregame engineer at pregame ENG.
There you go. So we'll look forward to talking to you next week. Go Jeff Gordon and go Dale Jr.
That's right.